Hey there, fellas. I had another Lada. I suggest we try this for an experiment. Something in the spirit of, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Or the less you work on a car, the less it breaks. Today we're going to be fiddling with the suspension on our car, its underpinnings. How exactly? Well, let's bring it up and I'll give you a quick rundown. So whenever you hop into somebody's Lada, you oftentimes hear some rather unpleasant sounds. And when you ask why the owner isn't going in for a suspension overhaul, which is a very simple thing to do in this case, well, the answer you get tends to be along the lines of, just let the car do its thing. Anyway, so look here. Here's what I want to do. The suspension layout here is super simple. For example, back here all we got is a pair of shock absorbers, 5 links, 4 of which are trailing arms, the 5th one a panhard rod. Then you have your springs, so this really isn't a complicated setup. But let's not forget about the bushings. The rubber bits in here wear out, and you get those nasty noises due to them being completely shot. Now, some people get used to it and simply tolerate the knocking. And so our idea for this episode would be to see what will become of the car once they begin knocking. This will involve removing all of the bushings. We will, of course, leave the bolts in place to hold everything together, the metal bits, in order to imitate a situation where someone decided to leave his car to its own device and completely destroyed the bushings as a result. Then we head out to the test track, go for a spin, and get a hands-on understanding of how this affects the car's handling. Try to listen carefully and feel everything out, and figure out exactly what's up. But let's not forget that it's not just the rear suspension that's fitted with bushings. You also get them up front, inside these arms for one. I don't really want to tamper with the tie rod ends. I mean, as I'm sure you can imagine, the ball joints in there are pretty delicate, and they could quite easily come apart. No use looking around for ones that are shot, we'll just leave them alone altogether. At the very least we have some rubber in here, which we will extract. After that we try to get a feel for the car's newfound handling and driving characteristics. What happens when you remove all of the suspension bushings? Translation and voiceover by BMI Russian. Alright fellas, here's what we're looking at. Why are you constantly fighting me? Yeah, don't fix what ain't broken. We ain't. Those springs have created quite some tension. Anyway, we've removed the bushings. Up front we've extracted them from these 2 arms. As for the rear end, well, it's a rather interesting story. Hopefully these noises sound familiar. Well, almost. I'd say they're at least somewhat similar. Yeah, we're looking good. We've done well here. So here's the deal. Either I have no time to repair my car, or parts have severely dropped in quality. It doesn't matter. The suspension is clanking. It doesn't bother me. The car is moving along, we good. Now there is only one thing we need to do. Oh yeah, let's not forget that you can always just turn up the music, as not to hear the knocking. And so now we drop the car, head to the test track, where we can get up to 60, 70, or 80 Ks, and see how this thing behaves. With these very minor and insignificant suspension-related ailments. Alright, let's do this. Okay guys, we're out on the test track. The car and the track are fully prepared. Time for us to perform a test drive. See how the car behaves with the underpinnings in such a state of tune. Imitating a situation when someone decided not to meddle with his car, resulting in bushings that are completely boned. Let us begin. Hasn't warmed up, but no worries, we'll proceed anyway. It's time we set off. And immediately here are my impressions. It takes the slightest. I release the clutch to start moving, and I get an impact in the rear. That was me trying to get a quicker start. Well, in terms of letting go of the wheel and driving straight, that's out of the question. What was that sound? The gears won't go in. No idea why so. Okay then. Well, the way it behaves under braking is quite sketchy. This thing is impossible to manage. I mean, look. When you set off, you get plenty of knocking, since the axle isn't really secure. Then there's some weirdness when you brake. I press the pedal, the wheels begin to decelerate, at which point the entire car should begin to slow down. But there's so much play in all of the connection points that you can feel a half-second delay before everything loads up. It's not really all that much, but you can definitely feel it. Half a second is enough time for the car to just veer in whichever direction it decides to. Not to mention that it travels quite a considerable distance in that time span. Let go of the wheel, hit the brakes, and deceleration begins with a noticeable delay. And that hesitation. It's not that big of a problem when setting off. I mean, let it knock, whatever. But the brakes are a pretty useful thing to have. Alright, let's see where this goes. The alignment is actually pretty good. You can even move in a straight line without holding the wheel. Oh man, this is a true nightmare. It's as if the brakes don't work at all. That's not ideal. Now what if I were to go a bit faster? Curious to see what happens. What an awful racket. Plus the handling is completely unpredictable. I want to send it to the right and or to the left, and the car continues to travel straight. Some time does go by before it begins to turn. So there's this thing they have in driving school which they call a moose test. You get up to speed and drive towards a row of cones, which you then have to navigate without hitting a single one of them. We'll try to do just that in this here automobile. We tried our own big cars out. I own a full-size SUV. We've got a Hummer and a Range Rover and a Volkswagen. We were hitting some cones at first, but then we got the hang of it. We got a good feel for the size of our rigs and began acing it. But how is this one going to fare? Who knows? Maybe it has what it takes. Alright, let's lay out those cones and begin testing. Let's go. For starters, I'll keep it at 40 Ks. Oh, hello. Oh yeah, I'm the man. Now let's try 60 Ks. That's 50, if the speedometer readout is correct. This requires constant steering correction. I hit the brake, and only now does it begin to slow down. Amazing. Amazingly awesome. Now, if this were, say, a car from a Japanese brand, where you've got a multi-link setup, that might... I just hit a cone. Crap. That's it. It took just a slight increase in speed, and things went south. We'd like to try something as to substantiate my claims, so that it's not just me who's saying that the car is completely uncontrollable. So I've just asked a professional driving instructor to take this thing out. Let him have a go and share his impressions, while we look on and laugh. Oh yeah. To be honest, I really have no idea which way it'll go, with all of that play in the suspension, especially in the rear axle. Though the front suspension arms, both upper and lower, are also all over the place. Oh wow, the amount of correction he had to do. There's really no other way to go about it, though. What do you think? Should you even drive on a road with suspension bushings in this condition? I don't think it's a good idea. You might have an accident. A lot of things can happen. Perhaps it might even flip over? Sure. Here's where we're going with this. Everybody should give it a try. Yeah, you're right. I'll get to that part a bit later. Alright, let's go do some more driving and see what comes out of this. We might even be able to put the car on its roof. It doesn't have seatbelts. Plus, it'd be a shame to lay such a good example to waste. Anyway, as we were. Now I get it up to whatever speed I can. That's 70. Oh wow, I actually nailed that one. Holy cow. Missed that one. Didn't quite make it. What a shame. Alright fellas, here's what we're looking at. That moose test, let me put it this way. If you have the appropriate skills, despite the suspension being in such terrible condition, well, it is possible, but you'll need to be traveling at pretty low speeds. Once you get over 60 kilometers an hour, for me personally, and I'm sure a lot of other people would feel the same, things become rather difficult. That driving instructor did a great job, though he obviously spends a lot of time out here. Props to that dude. Anyway, we got a good sense of how this car behaves when driving on tarmac, which is to say it's totally unpredictable. Now I'll go ahead and leave the pavement to a place where we have rocks, pits, bumps. Let's see how this thing fares on a rough sort of village road. Let's do this. I am super keen. It's tough to navigate obstacles, though it is doable. You just need to really work that steering wheel. Try to avoid all of the stones, though I don't really think that it's possible, but at least most of them. I'll do my best to get around the bigger ones. On one hand, it's actually kind of cool to drive around in a car like this. It's fun in its own strange way. But I have a feeling that it'll get old really fast. Moreover, I reckon that you'll get very angry and start saying a lot of bad words. There you go. Now, if I'm being completely honest with you, granted you have some kind of empty lot within access, you can actually have quite a bit of fun with this. Right, fellas? I think this experiment has gone tremendously well. 107%. You know how we roll? You saw it? And hopefully you got the point without me having to go into any additional explanation on why cars always have to be in top shape. Those talks to the effect of, yeah, I might have a slight knock, but I can make it to the winter. People just don't. Always keep track of your car's health. Make sure that everything is in working order so that you don't get into any accidents or any other sort of unpleasant situations. Yeah, look after your cars. Always keep up with the service. Drive carefully, of course. And that's all I have for you. Watch us, subscribe, send in those comments and suggestions. Give us a big thumbs up. All right, catch you later.